Some viewers. I mean,
Hello, BookTube. Well, as you can see, it's that time again. It's Manatee Monday. Hello, Deb.
hello, BookTube.
How are you, Mrs. D?
I'm just fine, Mr. D.
I have to
The
tell
rain
you,
has finally let up.
the heat has finally let up. Yes, and we were
The
spared.
rain. The rain.
The rain has let up, and it ended the heat as well.
I bet last night you spent all night reading in the rain.
I did.
Listening to it on the
Listening to it patter down on the windows. I did all night long. I resisted the urge to check online for all the disasters that were happening everywhere else.
No,
New York inundated with rain, flash floods in New Jersey, tornadoes in New Jersey.
I saw
tornadoes touching down in Annapolis. And none of that happened here. By the time it got here, it had petered out.
There was a storm when it was over 10, oh God, maybe over 20 years ago. It was when I lived in my old apartment over near Fenway, over by the Fenway T stop. And we had a really bad rainstorm, and the rain just poured down like a river, just like in New York, a river rushing down into the Kenmore T stop. And that was shut down for, yeah.
I remember that.
That was something to watch. So
we were spared this time
New
around.
York, it's unbelievable.
But in response to our last Manatee Monday, I had two main requests. The first one was, can Deb be in every video? I got a lot of emails to that effect. I was very.
I can, in fact.
He has a life, you know. Then I remembered, you don't have any more of a life than I do. You spend all day reading.
I have no life at all.
And talking to your little dog. I spend all day reading and talking to my little dog. The only difference is you don't write, even though I wanted you to 15 years ago. It would be really great if you did. But that's the only difference.
Oh, when I was home with my mother, I heard multiple times, oh, I always thought you'd be a writer.
You're really good at it. Yeah. You just don't do it. Because you are the single laziest human being on the face of the planet. Notice, BookTube, she doesn't say, no, I'm not, because she knows. She knows she is.
But, I am undisciplined.
Oh, that's pretty good spin. But the second most requested thing I got was to see Lucky.
Is that possible? Oh, Lucky, come here. Come here. Come here.
Those of you who are new,
he's coming.
This is my old friend. He's on his way. She also has a tiny little dog.
Come here. Come here, Pooh. Lucky, come here. Come here. Steve's viewers want to see. Oh, come here. Steve's viewers want to see you. Now, he hasn't been to the groomer throughout the summer, so he
Lucky, you have to look at the camera, baby. Oh.
Look over here. Look over here.
All right.
So he will be groomed in a week or two. He's got one groomer that he lets groom him, and that's it. So if she's backed up, he doesn't get a haircut.
Oh, look at that face.
This is my little boy. This is my little sweet boy.
All right. So we're going to move straight on. We're going to be right down to business. Yes? Those of you who are unfamiliar with Manatee Mondays, we go through my aches and pains, my stories, and then my books. So start us off, Mrs. D. What are your aches and pains? What's your aches and pain today?
So my aches and pains last week, I was very serious. And
it's chronic pain. I had a lot of people email me telling me their chronic pain stories because of you.
And I saw a couple comments and of other people that have chronic pain. I see them on Twitter all the time, and I feel so bad. I feel so bad for people that have chronic pain because I know what it's like now. But so this week I thought I'd be very lighthearted. My chronic pain is psychological this week. And that is that when I was in Maine, I had a daily bottle of Moxie. And for those people unfamiliar with Moxie, it is a drink, it is a soda that is very popular in Maine and apparently Pennsylvania. The rest of New England, a little bit. Outside of New England and Pennsylvania, apparently not so much. But I miss it. I miss it so much because it's very easy to get in Maine. Like your local sandwich shop has it. Um, your, I mean, the chains don't obviously, but
But
like,
what is it that you miss? Just the flavor, or is it
so
made different?
it's flavor, and there's nothing quite like it. Um, it's kind of similar to Dr. Pepper, I think, but it's got its own distinctive flavor that is sweet and bitter at the same time. So
Doesn't sound good.
it packs a punch, and people either love it or hate it. There's no, like, you wouldn't go to someone's house and they'd say, "Hey, I got some Moxie. You want to have a glass?" And they'd be like, "Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Maybe."
I vaguely remember
either
Moxie from my times in Maine. I don't think I ever tried it.
absolutely or no way. It's either nectar of the gods or it's the grossest stuff on earth. But I kind of miss it. Whereas you can get it in Boston. You have to look around a little bit more than you do in Maine.
Well, I went for trivial with my ache and pain as well.
Okay.
I was reading all night long. You're right. I had the iPad Mini. It was totally comfortable. The room for once was comfortable. Frida was sound asleep. She's a big girl and very standoffish at first. The deeper into sleep she goes as the night goes on, the further up the bed she migrates until finally she's right here with her head right there. Read all night long. It was really good reading. But somewhere in the course of all of that, I got a kink in my neck.
Oh, no.
And as you may know, my neck is not where I like my kinks to be. I've already warned them. They already know we're the dirty grandparents. So that's my ache and pain.
Steve.
Is that I've got a kink in my neck.
Do you still have a kink in your neck this morning?
I do. Yes.
Oh, no.
I'm sure it'll go away.
That's the first sign of decline, Steve.
I'm a supple 20-something, so it will go away. But anyway, we can't, if we just wool gather like two Donegal housewives over the back fence, we'll never get through this. And I've got bills to pay.
You have stuff to do.
BILZ.
I got nothing to do.
You could have bills to pay. You could easily have a booming freelance career. Imagine if you'd been doing it for 15 years.
I know. I wish. I wish I'd started back then. And I realized I could start today.
Could, absolutely. The thing that so many writers, including published writers, have such a hard time. There's so many things that writers have to do. And one of the things that writers have the hardest time doing is capturing their own voice. That's something that came to you naturally.
Yeah.
That's incredible. That's an incredible leg up on the writing process. Most writers work for years before they find their voice. Anyway.
See how I'm willing to just accept that?
I'm not gonna harangue. Instead, we'll move on to my stories. And here, I want to stress to BookTube that Deb and I do not coordinate these things. We have as little contact with each other as we can.
Yeah, no, we don't talk about what we're going to.
I want to know if your story is going to be the same as mine. That's bound to happen sooner or later.
Well, I had a story lined up, and then Texas came along.
And then Texas happened.
And I'm not really sure that I want to. That's not going to be my story, just because I think I need to process it. Although if it's your story, I'd be happy to weigh in on it.
What's to say about it?
It's
absolutely horrific.
It's horrifying, and I gotta say, I never expected it to come to this. Although we've been seeing the signs.
Yeah.
So I did kind of think that the challenge would arise. I assumed that places would do what Texas did in banning it. But the whole idea of the bounty, like, I'm just stunned.
Straight out of The Handmaid's Tale.
And I'm stunned that well, and this has been, I've been stunned about this, confused about this. How do people that scream about rights and democracy, how do they allow this to happen.
Yeah. Rights and democracy, and they also scream about small government. And here's the government reaching right into your life.
And the idea of like everything is either socialist or communist if it's like something that would help Americans. This is right out of those books.
Yeah. It's
like
right
this is a 1984 type situation.
Yeah. And it gets worse. You'd think this is really bad, but it gets worse. There are 2 cases on the Supreme Court's docket that make it explicit. The news productions are all saying today and yesterday, they're saying that Roe v. Wade was struck down in Texas. That's not true. It is still the law in Texas. It's just they made it so impossible to do that effectively it doesn't protect you in Texas. But there are 2 cases on the court's docket that explicitly asked them to strike down Roe v. Wade. And the judges that are the majority on the Supreme Court were chosen on that one issue alone. They weren't chosen for any other reason than to do this, than to give this vote.
Yep.
But it gets worse even than those 2 cases, because the same block of money people and donors and PACs and judges and power pullers behind the scenes in the American conservative movement have their eyes ultimately on the 19th Amendment. They want you officially to be a second-class citizen in America. This is just one aspect of a larger picture that they don't like. And the reason they don't like it is because it's not biblical. But you said that wasn't your story. So what is your...
That's not my story. So my story is, I want to share something that BookTube viewers might not know about, which is the Boston Public Library was cyber attacked this week.
I didn't know that.
August 25th.
That would explain all the emails I've been getting. Okay.
There was a cyber attack. So since the 25th until I think yesterday, all services that included logging in and getting to your account were shut down. So you could go into a branch and physically check out a physical book. I don't know how I don't know the ins and outs. One report I read said they were doing it by paper. I didn't notice that. I went into the Brighton branch out here, but I don't know how it was done. But you know how at Barnes and Noble sometimes the registers would go down, but you could still ring things up. It just wouldn't like calculate yet.
Right.
It just wouldn't subtract from the...
But why would somebody cyber attack a library?
I don't know. I don't know what they were after.
Oh, this is going to be extra hard on you. You're a complete creature of the library.
I know. I was at first. I
you
thought,
weren't expecting me to go all the way, were you? You expected me to stop a creature, weren't you?
I didn't notice it until the weekend, and I went to go into Overdrive, and it said that it couldn't process my login.
So what's the latest detail? Am I going to have to reset my account with the library?
No.
So do we know if any information was compromised?
They said not. They said that they didn't think any personal information was hacked, either of personnel or patrons.
So somebody out there in the hacker world does not yet know the extent of your borrowings of porn. That is still between you and the Boston Public Library and the frankly exhausted librarians who have to serve those needs.
Oh, Steve.
Frankly, you exhaust them.
I do exhaust them, but for many other reasons.
Oh, that's horrifying. I wonder
so
what the details are.
I don't know if it was something that was just that they were just aiming for some sort of Boston governmental department.
Or maybe getting in through the back door. I imagine.
Yeah, and maybe the library was just the easiest one to go for, or if it was somebody just goofing around. I don't know what.
I know a whole bunch of people at the library. I'm gonna have to find out what the details are.
Find out more.
I'll find out and let you know. Well, my story is a lot more.
Wait, before we get to you, I also found some interesting facts. Like I was just kind of looking into the history of the library, and I knew it had been the first library to loan out books in the U.S. But it's also the third biggest library in the US, and I didn't know that. After the Library of Congress and the New York Public Library.
Boston Public Library, the old building, also has a number of other records, a number of other firsts in all sorts of categories, including
First children's room.
But also in terms of the kinds of patrons they allowed to walk through the front door and borrow books. They
Really?
were a trailblazer in all of that, largely because they were first. And the Boston Public Library wasn't even first. There is an older library in Boston that did all of that before Boston. But yeah, it's a very, very impressive place. I meant to start going back there. I meant to come back to being a library creature myself, but then COVID hit.
Yeah.
Or no, actually, the timeline was first, my girls got sick. And you remember what they were like at the end. I couldn't leave them at all. I mean, I couldn't, it wasn't like they were going to sleep comfortably here. They'd panic if I weren't here because they knew.
And then you had the lovely little Frida who you didn't want to leave.
I didn't want to leave her. And there was also COVID, so I just stopped.
And then COVID. I miss the library so much. I want to get back to it.
The public library? Oh, yeah.
But
oh, yeah. Even the new building, now that they've renovated it, it's so nice now that.
Yes.
Anyway,
my
story is far more serious, and I bet it clocked up on your radar as well, and it can be summed up in 2 words: Madison Cawthorn.
Tell me more.
A young, stupid, good-looking representative from North Carolina, a new representative, who came on my radar years ago, long before he was elected to a Nazi Congress. He came on my radar because he was on social media. He made a few limited stories on social media because he was in a crash that crippled him for life. He's in a wheelchair. And he made a whole bunch of videos and shorts on social media that were glowingly positive. He filmed himself going through physical therapy. He filmed himself learning how to cope. And it was genuinely inspiring. But in between those kinds of videos, there was more and more of an increase of explicitly Nazi fascist content. So I followed him on those social media accounts, which he doesn't upkeep anymore, because I thought, charismatic young man, wheelchair, he could try for a career in politics. And he's dangerous. He's self-evidently dangerous in his political thinking. So maybe I'll just follow these accounts. And then I forgot about it because he stopped posting on them. And then he got elected to Congress. And the very first tweet he made when he got elected was, "Cry more, libs." Delivered in a tone that, I've been saying this for years now, delivered in a tone that made it indistinguishable from "Cry more, Jew." This is a young man who, with his brother, made a tour of the hotspots of the historical spots of Nazi Germany. Not the battlefields, not the museums, but the places where Hitler hanged out. Took pictures of themselves there. When he's at Trump-style Klan rallies, he dresses like a Nazi with the ostentatious wooden buttons and the leather gloves that don't quite cover the whole hand. He looks like a Bond villain when he's at those rallies. And he was at one of those Klan rallies in North Carolina recently when he said that it would be the biggest heartbreak of his life if in response to widespread voter fraud, he had to take up arms against his fellow Americans. That it would really break his heart to do that. I watched the clip and thought, okay, so you're a serving congressman and you're not saying you wouldn't do it. And you're not saying anybody else wouldn't do it or shouldn't do it. You're saying it would really it would bum you out if you had to shoot Americans because they disagree with your dictatorial policies. It would really bum you out. It would ruin your day. It would harsh your buzz. That's what he was saying to these people, and they were applauding him. But another thing that I found very interesting in the clips that went viral of him doing that was one of the Klan members in the audience said, "When are you going to call us back to Washington?" Referring to the armed and violent insurrection to overthrow the government of our country. Madison Cawthorn was deeply involved in that, on the ground in that, until he realized, like every other cowardly rat in the whole stew, that it was going out of control, that the hicks that they had weaponized actually intended to kill Mike Pence. That it wasn't just a slogan, they actually intended to do it. And then he disappeared from the radar. But he is manifestly guilty of coordinating that event. Not as guilty as Marjorie Taylor Greene, who I guarantee you shared floor plans with insurrectionists the night before, which is high treason. That's enough to get her shot in a sane country. I guarantee you she did that. I guarantee you Josh Hawley did that. Not just cheering people on with a fist up like that, but sharing office plans. Here is where you find so-and-so's office. It's a little hard to find. Let me give you a map. I guarantee you that Madison Cawthorn was involved in that side of this. And the thing I found interesting about that quote is the word back. Was that somebody in the Klan audience signaling that some people know that he called them the first time? I don't know. His spokespeople have been frantically doing damage control on that whole thing since it happened. But he's my story. Because that clip of him saying, gee, I'd really hate to shoot Americans who don't love Trump. But I will, if I have to. I mean, I will. We should stockpile ammunition and get ready to do that if the next election doesn't go the way we want. But I'd hate it. It would really ruin my day. That quote that's gone viral now confirms my instincts from years ago, when I thought, this is somebody I should pay attention to. This is somebody who, if he got a chance, would be really, really dangerous. So there you go. That's my story. Significantly more worrying on the national level than the Boston Public Library being hacked, although your story hits me more closer to home.
Well, I just thought I would bring up my story, since people, you know, why would people anyplace else in the country know or care? But, you know,
there's the boy again.
Oh, yes, he's sitting on my lap the entire time. Just being a good boy.
This is cute dog overload. That's all anybody's going to care about.
I know people have blocked out areas of their screen so that they only see.
That's what they do to me. They
yeah.
Cute dog overload.
And they pretend to themselves that it's the dogs talking.
So anyway, let's move on to finish up with my books.
My books. Yes. Well, yesterday began Science Fiction September.
Oh, that's right. Deb is studying science fiction in September. She is submerging herself in science fiction.
Yep. The only rules is it's gotta fall under science fiction fantasy, and it has to be something I own already, since I have way too many books. But I started, I was all excited. I was gonna start reading at midnight on the, the 31st, or on the 1st at midnight, but I didn't. And then I was like, I'm gonna wake up early, I'm gonna get right to it. I didn't. I slept until like noon. But the first book is The Lies of Locke Lamora, which was recommended by your roommate to me.
And by me. I have also recommended it many, many times to you.
Probably. I just remember him. I probably asked him recommend me a science fiction book. And
have you started it?
I have. I'm like 150 pages into it. It's a beast. It's like 700 pages.
Are you enjoying it?
I am, and I look forward this afternoon to squiggling back down with it. But I'm quite taken with the whole character of Locke Lamora and his many, many lies and his schemes.
What's next? What are you going to do if you finish that in September? Do you have another book lined up?
I have a bunch of possibilities. I don't know what one I'll pick though. But so probably next time there will be more to talk about with this. I will have more of an idea what's going on, but so far I'm quite taken with the way they're setting things up. Locke and his friends are setting up a big scam.
This is what they call Frida's yoga. When she stretches behind me, people just wait for that because she does this elaborate stretching behind me. Do you want to get down on the floor, baby? There you go.
Lucky likes to do that when I'm trying to attach his leash to take him out. He'll decide that's a great time.
She hates it. She likes everything else about it. She likes the walk, but she hates putting the harness on.
Right.
She has a real thing with anyone reaching for any reason up past her eyes, whether it's to put a harness on, or a lot of people will reach to pet her on the back of her head. She shies away from them, even though she loves being petted. I always have to
Right.
tell people, go under.
Yeah.
Go
Well, that's
under.
the way you approach dogs generally is where they're so they can always see your hand.
A lot of people don't know that.
People don't. Well, and the other thing people don't know is when you see a dog on the street and you're running or you're biking or you're skating or whatever, keep in mind that the dog is going to go after you. Not because it's a bad dog, not because it's a mean dog, not because it likes biting people, but because it's instinct.
Yeah. There was a TV show a long time ago. It was only on for a tiny bit of time. It was called Wolf Lake. It was about a town full of werewolves. It was on the WB. I think it was all the werewolves were sexy. And there were normal humans and werewolves. They were hopping out of bed, in and out of bed with each other. There was one line on that show that I love, absolutely love, where one of the young hottie boys is talking to his girlfriend who's a human, and he's decided he's going to show her his transformation because he doesn't want any secrets between them. And before he transforms, he says to her, "It's okay to be afraid, but don't run."
Yeah.
And that's exactly right. He's saying that line is always typified for me what you're saying. Dogs don't have any control over it. It's not bad behavior for them to do that. Just have to keep that in mind. Same thing with reaching behind the head. Would you want somebody to do that? You want somebody to grab you by the back of the head?
Yeah.
Anyway, my book.
Your book.
Reread. It's going to be very familiar to you. I've been doing it. I'm rereading it slowly. Instead of bolting through it, I'm rereading it slowly. Sacred Games by Vikram Chandra, this gigantic thing. I have
not read that.
But you remember when we got it at the store, right? It was a big deal. We had stacks and stacks.
Is that the book that when they released the readers' copies, they released them in like 7 little parts or something?
Is that the book? That. Yes, that's the book. I knew you'd remember that. Yes, I was trying to describe that the last time I talked about this book on this channel, that the bookstore ARC came in multiple parts.
Yeah, I kind of like that because it's such a thick book.
It's a thick book, and I don't know if you remember, the multiple parts had separate bullet holes on them.
I think I do remember that.
It was very clever. It was a very clever way to do it.
And it would also be a very easy way to pass it around the staff.
Right, which I think was the goal. That and also because it's less intimidating. Like you say, it's a huge book. And with a huge book, you really want the readers on the staff to be able to talk about it when it finally comes out, because the customers are going to be just as intimidated. But boy, oh boy, am I loving this. Just loving it. I don't think Vikram Chandra has written anything since this. And this came out like 10 years ago.
Oh gosh, more than that. Because I'm pretty sure it came out when we were downtown.
I think you're right. Yeah. So 2005, 2006, something like that, a long time ago. And I am loving it even more. I loved it the first time, but I'm loving it even more the second time. Every single moment in the book causes Chandra to say, well, and about that, here's this story. And just tell you another story.
I love books like that.
Over again. I know that it's word, it's association, but it keeps reminding me of A Suitable Boy by Vikram Chandra.
I love books that kind of meander and
as long as the author is a great storyteller. Yeah. I lose patience if the author can't tell a story. But if they can, then I want them to do that. And this author does. I'm just loving it. So my books is just one book. I'm reading plenty of other new stuff, but that book is the joy of my reading life right now. I don't want it to end, which is an odd thing for somebody who reads as fast as I do to say, but nevertheless, I don't want it to end. I'm intentionally reading it slowly.
Well, you're reading plenty of other things at the same time.
I am. I'm rationing how much of this I do.
Right.
I did this a few months ago. At the beginning of the summer, I did this I found a Canadian trade paperback of Wolf Hall and decided to read it slowly, very slowly, and had a great time. So now I'm doing that again. So that's my book.
That's a good
Sacred Games, and it's terrific. I had a lot of people recommend the Netflix series based on the book. Have you ever seen that?
No.
Even know it existed.
I've not heard of it, no.
I don't particularly want to watch it. I'm loving this book. That's the experience of this book.
You could easily ruin it if you watched something that was not
I wouldn't want
up to what you want it to be,
or was different in some way that I didn't like. I wouldn't want to do that. I'll just I'll just stick
That's
with
why I never watched The Haunting of Hill House, the Netflix series. Same thing. The book was perfect, and I'm like, whatever,
Yes.
whatever you do to the, whatever you do in the series, it's not going to be perfect like the book.
Well, there you go.
One thing I think I will read this science fiction September is The Man in the High Castle.
Why?
Because I like Philip K. Dick, and I have not read that one.
Have you read Dune?
I have read Dune, yes. I read Dune as a wee lass.
So you could stand to read it again.
I probably could stand to read it again.
Just wait a few weeks, and then the copy in your bookstore will have Timothée Chalamet's face on it, which is the only way to improve an otherwise.
I have no idea who that is. Like that's nothing against the actor.
It just means you spend a lot of time in Maine.
It just means
the only person in the world
I
who
don't
knows
follow.
What Moxie is, but doesn't know who Timothée Chalamet is.
I don't follow pop culture. I don't know actors. I don't know you modern actors. But I don't like movie.
He's dreamy. He has big floppy hair. He has no pores in his skin, so he looks like an android. He sounds like an android. He overacts. He's 5 feet tall. And by that, I don't mean he's 5'6". I don't mean he's 5'2". I don't mean he's 5'1". I mean he's 5 feet tall. He's the size of a small child.
I just don't like movie covers of any sort. So
me neither, usually. Well, but anyway, there you go. That was a nice, controlled Manatee Monday.
Yes. And we will do this again.
A parting shot for BookTube? They got everything they want. We talked about books. They saw both our cute dogs. Any parting shot for them?
I don't, although I hope they remain healthy and happy. Because I love your viewers.
Oh, God help us. Don't encourage them. They're intolerable enough as it is. I suppose I love them too.
You do.
Yes, several people over the years have said they are my customers now. That I've just changed from my information desk to BookTube. And I grudgingly loved all of my customers at my information desk too, so I suppose. But anyway, I'm going to hang out for a walk and then get to work on the kind of writing.
All right, well, I'm going to sit down and try to read more of The Lies of Locke Lamora.
We'll have another Manatee Monday soon.
We will. I got a lot of science fiction to get through this month. Because next month, of course, is horror.
Oh, for October.
Yeah, I do that every October. Horror, nothing but horror. So.
Well, off you go to read then.
Off I go to read and try to stay awake because that's what I do. Sit down with a book and nod off.
Deb tries to stay awake. And at 3:30 or 3:45 every night, I try to go to sleep.
No, we'll see. That's when I'm awake is the middle of the night. That's when I can't sleep.
I don't know why you want to sleep. Why would you want to sleep at all? It's gross. You're not awake if you're asleep. How do you know you're coming back? Ugh.
Oh gosh, now I certainly am not going to be able to sleep. Thank you for that, Steve.
Well, let's wait a few days and do another Manatee Monday.
Yes, let's.
All right, so I'm gonna stop the recording on this thing.
Bye, BookTube.